people in the West still think this is just rhetoric. They think death to America is like a bumper sticker. They think death to Israel is just how you say goodbye in Tehran. They think this is blowing off steam. The leaders of the free world are shocked that Iranians are showing up to mourn a mass murderer. Let me say that one more time so it fully lands. Western politicians and journalists are looking at massive crowds in Tehran mourning Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, a man who spent 40 years exporting terror, hanging dissidents, and chanting death to America, and they are confused. They are actually confused. They thought everyone hated them. They thought maybe people would stay home. They're looking at a society built on survival under brutal dictatorship, and they are applying the logic of a Midwestern town hall meeting. They think if you don't like the mayor, you just don't go to the parade. They think civic participation in a terror state is voluntary. They think survival is a multiple choice question. Stay to the end because we are going to look at how Western media covered this funeral. The puff pieces they wrote for a man who would gladly see them all dead. This one is wild. Let's start with the guest list. The funeral for Ali Khamenei that just happened, and the guest list is a who's who of global moral clarity. You have leaders from Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey. You have Russia sending Dmitry Medvedev. You have the Houthi delegation. They are all there, standing around, looking somber, paying their respects. Paying their respects to what exactly? To a man who built an empire on human trafficking, drug running, and global terror. A man who murdered tens of thousands of his own people, and these heads of state are showing up to bow their heads. Could you imagine this happening in 1945? Can you imagine a state funeral for Adolf Hitler and the leaders of neighboring countries just showing up to sign the guest book? So sorry for your loss. He had a great mustache. Thanks for the sandwiches. Who would go? What would it mean if you did go? It would mean you were entirely morally bankrupt, or completely terrified, or both. The leader of Pakistan actually called Khamenei a martyr. A martyr! He was killed by an American strike, and an American ally is calling him a martyr. What does that say about the person who killed him? What does that say about the United States? The Americans are just letting this slide. They are watching their supposed allies mourn a man who dedicated his life to destroying them, and they are taking notes on the floral arrangements. They are standing in a room with the architects of their own destruction, and they are worried about using the wrong fork. This is the geopolitical equivalent of your neighbor calling a homeowners association meeting, voting to put a fence through your backyard, and then mailing you the minutes, and you just say, "Thank you for the update." And it's not just the immediate neighbors. The entire international community is playing along. They are treating this like a normal diplomatic event. They are sending condolences. They are lowering flags for a man whose entire life's work was the destruction of the West. It is a level of cognitive dissonance that is almost impressive. Then there is the elephant in the room, or rather the missing elephant. Where is Mojtaba Khamenei? The supreme leader is dead, the funeral is happening, and his son, the heir apparent, the guy who is supposedly running the show now, is nowhere to be found. No one has seen him since the war started. No video, no audio, just some written messages, because nothing says strong, stable leadership like a mysterious note slipped under the door. If they admit Mojtaba is dead or incapacitated, the regime crumbles. There is no clear successor. There are just rival factions waiting to tear each other apart. So they have to pretend he is alive. They have to pretend he is in charge. He is Schrodinger's dictator. He is both alive and dead until someone opens the bunker. And the world is just playing along. We are pretending this is a functioning government and not a hostage situation run by a ghost. We are negotiating with a shadow. We are waiting for a pulse from a corpse. Imagine the United States government being run for weeks via unsigned post-it notes, and the entire international community just nodding along and saying, yes, this seems totally normal and legitimate. Happens to be, that's Biden. That is what is happening right now in Tehran. The mask is not slipping. The mask is completely off. They threw it on the ground and stomped on it, and the West is still pretending there is a face underneath. They're holding a funeral for the father while pretending the son is not already in the grave next to him. And the diplomats are just standing there pretending not to notice the smell. Now I want to come back to those clips from the opening because I want to make sure we are all on the same page about what we just watched. Those were not protesters. Those were mourners. Those were people who showed up to pay their respects, and their respects sounded like this. And the people in the West say, well, they don't really mean it. No, they mean it. Look at their actions for the last 40 years. They blew up Marine barracks. They funded Hamas. They armed Hezbollah. They built a society entirely devoted to sowing death and destruction all over the world. The man they are mourning built that machine, and they are standing at his grave, promising to keep the machine running. This is not a political rally. This is a promise, and the West is listening to this promise with noise-canceling headphones. When someone spends 40 years trying to kill you, and then they gather at the funeral and scream that they are going to keep trying to kill you, maybe you should believe them. But the West prefers the fantasy. The West prefers to think that underneath the chance of death and destruction, there is a moderate just waiting to break out. There is no moderate, there is only the machine. They chant death to Israel, and the West says, well, they have valid grievances about borders. They chant death to America, and the West says, we must understand their historical trauma. No, you do not need to understand their trauma. You need to understand their goal. Their goal is your death. They are saying it out loud. They are printing it on banners. They are screaming it at a funeral. Believe them. Which brings us to the American response. President Trump was reportedly shocked by the size of the crowds. He thought people hated Khamenei. He thought they would be cheering in the streets. And it is not just him. JD Vance was confused last week about why the Iranians weren't admitting progress in negotiations. Steve Witkoff was confused about why they weren't capitulating. It is like they did not do the reading. It is like they showed up to a final exam on Middle East geopolitics and realized they studied for a test on local zoning laws. There is an article you need to read. It was written by Dr. Harold Rode, a man who spent 28 years advising the Secretary of Defense on the Islamic world. He lived in Iran, he speaks Persian, he wrote a piece called The Sources of Iranian Negotiating Behavior. Just search that title and you will find it. I will put the link in the description. And it explains exactly what is happening right now. In Iran, survival is the only thing that matters. You do not survive by standing on principle. You survive by aligning with whoever has the power. If the regime looks weak, you turn on them. If the regime looks strong, you line up and cheer. Right now, the regime is still standing. Trump is negotiating with him. The US is talking about taking a break from the war for the funeral. The regime looks like it is going to survive. So the people show up. They show up and they chant death to America because they know their neighbor is watching. They know the secret police are watching. They are putting their picture with the mullahs back on the wall, just in case. They do not love Khamenei. They love breathing, and Western leaders cannot tell the difference. Let me tell you a story from Rhodes' article. He talks about a family in Tehran before the 1979 revolution. They had pictures of themselves with the Shah on their wall. 5 years after the revolution, an American visits them. The pictures of the Shah are gone, replaced by pictures of the family with the senior mullahs, taken years earlier. The American asks about the old pictures. The family laughs. They say that the pictures of the Shah are in a safe hiding place, and the pictures of the mullahs used to be in the exact same hiding place. They hedge their bets. They survive. That is what you are seeing in the streets of Tehran. You are seeing 1 million people hedging their bets because the West is too weak to finish the job. The West is giving them a reason to keep the mullah's picture on the wall. And now we get to the absolute bottom of the barrel, the Western media coverage. You might think, well, the dictators are going to mourn the dictator. That makes sense. But what about the free press? What about the journalists from democratic countries? Surely they will tell the truth about this monster. No, They will not.
As you can hear behind me, the grief and outrage felt by mourners inside Tehran's Grand Masala is palpable, where the remains of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei are lying in state, along with coffins of his family members who were also killed in the February airstrike. We've seen many mourners waving red banners which symbolize calls for revenge, as well as posters with a fist. There are reports that Khamenei's body was found with his fist clenched, and the regime here is using it as a symbol of defiance and strength to galvanize their supporters. We cannot independently verify if this story is true, but it tells us something significant. This 6-day funeral is not just an opportunity for people to pay their respect to the former Supreme Leader. It's a carefully choreographed political event designed to tell the world that the regime is very much alive and very much in control of Iran, even if their leader is dead. And to project this image, authorities have allowed journalists from all over the world to come here, which is a very different situation from just a month ago. We're not allowed to leave Tehran or report on any other issues, but we have been given access to the ceremony here to get that message out. But for the millions of people who are expected to attend this funeral, there are many more who did not support the Supreme Leader and the regime he led for almost 40 years. The ceremony is expected to end in Mashhad on Thursday, where his remains are to be buried.
Did you catch what just happened? She said the regime allowed journalists in specifically to cover the funeral and get this message out. They are not allowed to leave Tehran. They are not allowed to report on anything else. They are there for one reason: to broadcast the regime's power to the world. And she does it. She just does it. She takes the regime's script, reads it on camera, and calls it journalism. She repeats a story she admits she cannot verify. That Khamenei's body was found with his fist clenched in defiance. She is treating regime propaganda about a magic clenched fist like it is a meaningful piece of information. She throws in one little line in the end about how some people didn't support him just to cover her bases. One line after 2 minutes of reading the eulogy. This is a puff piece for a terrorist. This is the geopolitical equivalent of running a glowing review of the catering at the Red Wedding. Could you imagine a Western outlet doing this for Hitler? The grief in Berlin is palpable today. Sources say that the Führer was found with his mustache perfectly combed, a symbol of German resilience. It is unthinkable, but for Khamenei, it is just the evening news. This is a lack of conviction on the West. We do not know how to destroy evil anymore. We want to pause the war so they can mourn their genocidal maniac. It is pathetic. We are dealing with a death cult, and our media is treating it like a misunderstood cultural festival. They call him a spiritual leader. He was a mass murderer. His religion was genocide. His spirituality was apocalypse. And Western journalists are standing in the middle of Tehran, holding a microphone and helping him sell it one last time. The West has lost its mind. We are watching a regime that hangs gay people from cranes, that beats women to death for showing their hair, that funds every major terror group in the Middle East. And the Australian news is out there talking about this clenched fist like he is a comic book hero. There's no charitable reading of this. None. Well, that is it for today. The West is so desperate to see the world as a mirror that it cannot recognize a monster even when it is staring right at one. Let me know in the comments how long you think Mojtaba Khamenei has been dead, and I will see you next time.